is a clear and alarming lack of diversity on the North Carolina board at this time. What is being done, and Lou, maybe you can have insight to this, what is being done to achieve actual diversity on the Board of Governors, not just talk about it? Back in August, the makeup of the board looked like this. There were 24 voting members. 20 were white of 24. 3 were African American. 1 was Native American. 19 were men and 5 were women. 17 of the 24 members were white Republican men. 19 were Republicans and 5 were unaffiliated. None were Democrats. Not much diversity here unless we're using a non-traditional definition of diversity.
We found that it's just better if everybody has a voice at the table. Everybody's bringing a different skill set, everybody's bringing a different perception, and it helps the entire institution stay focused on all of the students they serve rather than those just from one geographic area.
Our governing board, the UNC, or at least in my opinion, the UNC Board of Governors needs to look like the state of North Carolina to some extent. Now, I know that's not, we don't want to get down to quotes, things like that, but really, you talk about gender. Well, that's important because I think over 50% of our students in the system are female.
That's correct.
Also African American. We have 22% of our population in North Carolina is African American. Another criteria that I'm really concerned about is the geographic criteria, because we've got 17 institutions spread out from Elizabeth City in the east to Western Carolina, out in Cullowhee in the west. It's a big state. The people are different. The missions of the institutions are different, and I just really believe that our Board of Governors needs to have geographic diversity as well. And now throw one more out, political diversity. Back before the Republicans took power in 2011 and the Democrats had controlled the government for many, many years, things have sort of switched. But what has not switched is the makeup of the state. I mean, we're about, I started to say half and half, but I think we're now about a third Democrat, a third Republican, and a third independent. And I think somehow our governing board needs to reflect that as well. And as you said, we need skill sets, backgrounds, and one other thing, and I'll shut up, is that we need people who have displayed an interest in higher education. I have seen a couple of instances in our situation where people came on our board and they said, well, when I was asked to come on the board, I really didn't even know what it was. So, you don't need that. You do need people who are dedicated. And you also need people, in my opinion, that don't have a built-in conflict. So although I have a lot of good friends who are lobbyists, I think lobbyists on the Board of Governors of the university system have a built-in conflict of interest. And I think that should be mitigated as much as possible.
Well, it is difficult, but not impossible to accomplish all those goals. There just has to be that intentionality built into the process.
If our legislators could only focus on doing one thing to make governance work, what would that one thing be?
I think developing a list of criteria by which they would choose board members.
And making that list public.
Works for me.
I agree 100%. I think that the key to having an effective governance system is having really good people who represent the demographics, the needs, the values and interests of all the people and of the state. And so it is crucial who you put on these boards and what their backgrounds are. And as we said when we started this, whether or not when you step back and look at that board in the end, whether it generally looks like your state or not. If it doesn't, you've got some problems that you need to address.